Hello everyone. In last two previous lectures, we talked about the nature and function of literary criticism. We also talked about what is a criticism and what are the different functions of criticism. In the present lecture, in the present video, we are going to move forward. We are going to move step ahead, and we are going to talk about what qualifications should a critic have, or what qualifications should a critic possess in order to become an ideal critic. So topic is qualifications of an ideal critic. So criticism is a broad term. Criticism is systematic study of literature. Criticism is journey of exploration into the nature of literature, and criticism is an exercise of judgment in the province of literature. So in order to make appropriate judgment, in order to pass on appropriate judgment, in order to make appropriate evaluation, correct evaluation, the true evaluation, the true interpretation, the true analysis of given literary piece or literary work or literature, critics should possess certain qualities. Now we are going to discuss which qualities are essential to become an ideal critic. The first important quality that critic should have is critic should possess rare and organic sensibility. So this is one of the most important quality to become a good critic. In order to become a good critic, critic should have organic sensibility, which is called as rare one. So organic sensibility was a phrase used by William Wordsworth. So organic sensibility stands for capability or capacities of mind, mental capabilities or capacity of the person. So here critic should possess rare mental capacities or ability in order to make the appropriate evaluation or interpretation of given literary text or literary work. So critic should be a man of sound judgment. He should have sound common sense, sound judgment. He should be a man of taste. He should be a man of taste. It means his taste should be much better, good than the ordinary person's. Then he should be a person of clear thinking. So his thought process, his thinking should be clear one. So there should not be vagueness, there should not be anything that is not straight, anything that is not direct, anything that is not clear or lucid at the time of evaluation or interpretation of literary work. In order to make appropriate or right evaluation, the critic should possess rare and organic sensibility. It means the critic should have sound common sense, he should be a man of taste, and he should be a person of clear thinking. His thought should be clear, his thought should not be vague, his thought should not be doubtful. What he has to criticize and what he is looking and what he is finding in that work, he should be clear about it. Then critics should be well read in past and present. So reading is very important activity. In order to become a good critic, critic should be a man of reading. He should be a man of wide reading. So he should read from both present and the past. It means that the critic should not discriminate between the literary work or literature as good or bad on the basis of its time value. It means he has to consider or he has to read literature from both present and past. He should not differentiate or distinguish. As the reading of literature, literary material is concerned, his reading should be related to both present and past. He should not discriminate, he should not distinguish, he should not call present as a good or the past as a bad or past as a good and present as a bad. So instead of judging the literary work on the basis of past and present, he should accept, he should read them, and this reading will make him a good critic. So Catholicity of taste is important to become a good reader. So we have to focus on the word Catholic. Also, what is Catholicity of taste? That is important. The Catholic means all encompassing. All encompassing. So critics should accept, critics should welcome, critics should read all sorts of literary works without discriminating it as a past and a present, and this Catholicity of taste is going to make him a good reader. It means that the critic is the person who dwells in, who likes to read the books from the past and the present, and this wide reading will make a person a Catholic, and this Catholic taste is important to evaluate a given literary work or literary piece. Then the second important thing in the first point, that is rare and organic sensibility, is that we should not discriminate literature on the basis of language. We should try to read literature in whatever language it is available. So language cannot stand as a barrier as far as the interpretation of literature is concerned. So there should not be discrimination between the reading of literature as far as the language is concerned. We can read literature, for example, speaking in Indian context, we should read literature whatever is written in Indian languages, for example Marathi, Hindi or other native languages. So this wide reading will help us to pass on a judgment, and this judgment will be based on facts, judgment will be based on truth, the judgments will be appropriate one, and this judgment will be not biased one. The second important qualification that critics should have is his focus should be on excellence. This is the second qualification or the quality which critics should possess, and this qualification is the focus of critics should be on excellence. The function of criticism, Victorian critic and the poet Matthew Arnold asserts that the function of criticism is to propagate. Propagate means to spread. Function of criticism is to propagate or the spread the best thought that is known in the world. So objective of criticism is the propagation of best thoughts which is available, which is in existence, which is in world. So it means that the objective of criticism and the objective of critic is not to dwell on imperfections, to dwell on faults. Rather, he should focus on excellences, he should focus on qualities. So this excellence is important in the criticism. So the intention or the objective of criticism is to find out the excellences rather than faults. So fault finding is not the business of criticism. The fault finding is not the business of critic. The business of critic is to focus on excellences, focus on qualities, focus on merits of the literary work which is under study. Then the critic's function is to provide aesthetic pleasure to the readers. So this propagation or providing aesthetic pleasure to reader will become possible when the critic focuses on excellences, when critic focuses on qualities rather than imperfections. In our second lecture we discussed about what are the different functions of criticism, and we know that according to modern critics, it is not the business of criticism or the critic to find out the faults. It is not the function of criticism to find out the weaknesses or the shortcomings of the given literary work. So, the focus of critic and the focus of criticism should be on beauties. Focus of criticism should be on excellent things. Focus of criticism should be on qualities, and focus of criticism should be on merits. So, as a critic, he should focus only on excellences rather than on ugliness. Most of his time, most of his attention should be on excellences rather than finding out faults. Critics should glean spots of beauty from the literary work. Then the next function of critic is, or the skill of, sorry, not function of critic, but the function of qualification of critic is, there should be proper training and technical skills. The third most important quality or qualifications to become an ideal critic is that he should have some proper training and technical skills. So, in order to make evaluation of literary work, in order to interpret given literary work, the critic should have certain technical skills, technical competencies, and he should have proper training. The training should be of different branches of literature. We know that there are different branches of literature. Literature has different kinds. It can be poem, it can be play, it can be drama, it can be short story. So, as a critic, he should know how to evaluate a poem. So, there is a difference between evaluation of poetry and evaluation of novel. So, he cannot evaluate novel and poetry by applying same standard or same principles. So, these technical skills should be inculcated into a critic. Critic should adopt, critic should train himself, and critic should know all the technical aspects of work of art. For example, if he has to evaluate or appreciate or interpret a poem, so as far as the evaluation of poem is concerned, he should categorize poem as a ballad, as a sonnet, as an epic, or as an elegy or an ode. Then he can focus on its stanza, he can focus on its structure, he can focus on its meter, he can focus on literary devices, and then he may come to conclusion after studying all these technical aspects or technical skills of the poem. So, these criteria cannot be applied as far as the estimation or the evaluation of novel is concerned. We cannot set a parameter of poetry or poems to evaluate or interpret a novel. So, there are different branches of literature, and each branch of literature has different criteria of evaluation. So, these technical skills, these technical things, the critic should be familiar with these technical things and technical issues. Then the fourth qualification which is essential to become a good critic is, he should be free from all sort of prejudices. Critic should be free from all sort of prejudices. Critic must rise above all prejudices. Critic should not judge or evaluate a work of art on his personal experiences, his personal preferences, his preferences, predilections, likes and dislikes should not be there at the time of interpretation of literary work. So he should be above all. He should be free from subjective involvement. He should be free from preferences. He should be free from predilections. Predilections can be in the form of nation. Predilections can be in the form of political ideology. Predilections can be in the form of language. Predilections can be in the form of literature, or predilections can be in the form of a peculiar attraction towards the particular literary piece or genre. So, as a critic, one has to rise away, one has to free himself from this sort of prejudices, this sort of likes and dislikes, and these likes and dislikes can't make good or correct appreciation of the literary work or literary piece. Then, critic is detached. He is detached. He should stay away from literary piece. He is detached and he is impartial. He approaches literary work with disinterested curiosity. His curiosity is disinterested. He does not show any personal interest in the literary work, and this disinterested curiosity will make a correct evaluation of literary work. If critic personally involved in the criticism or evaluation of literary work, that evaluation will be biased, that evaluation will be prejudiced, that evaluation will be incorrect, that evaluation will not give a true meaning, that evaluation won't pass aesthetic pleasure, that evaluation won't pass the message that the author wanted to convey. So, writer creates a literary work, and criticism or the critic criticizes literary work according to his experiences, according to his reading, according to his vision of life, and according to his taste, and according to his likes and dislikes. So, his likes and dislikes should not intervene in the process of criticism. So, critic is expected to be free from all sort of prejudices, all sort of preferences, all sort of predilections, all sort of biased attitude. If he has a biased attitude, there can't be a correct evaluation or the true evaluation of the literary work. The business of critic is not to condemn or praise the literary work. It is not the function or business. So he should not be condemner or eulogist. It is not the function or business of the critic to condemn or eulogize or praise the literary work to sky high. So he should present the facts, he should present the truths. The function of critic and the criticism is not to either condemn or praise it too much, to praise it in greater proportion. That is not the business or the function of criticism. So, critic is neither condemner nor eulogist. Eulogist means the person who praises. He should not either hate the literary work and he should not praise the literary work. So, there should be balance. It means he should show both merits and demerits, but his major attention, his focus should be on qualities and excellences at the time of evaluating or at the time of judging literary work. Critics should be guided by truth. It is very important to make the evaluation of literary work. If critic is guided by the truth, then evaluation, interpretation of literary work will be apt one, it will be right one, it will be based on his intellectual thinking, it will be free from all sort of prejudices and biases. So, he should not have partisan spirit. He should not. His spirit should be not partisan. His spirit should not be partisan. He should stay away from literary work and his personal involvement should not be there. Partisan spirit means he should not be the part of that literary piece, as if it means his subjective involvement should not be there. He should stay away from literary work, he should detach himself from literary work. Then the evaluation, the proper evaluation or the true evaluation of and the correct meaning of the literary work or the message of literary work can be conveyed to the readers. Critics' focus should be on beauties and ugliness of the literary work. The critic is considered to have swan-like attribute. Like a swan, we know that the swan has capability or attribute to separate water from milk. So swan separates. It is a peculiar quality, feature of swan. He separates water from milk. So, like swans, critics should separate merits and weaknesses. So, water we can call it as weaknesses, water we can call as ugliness, water we can call bad and bad thing, and milk we can call it as merits. So, critics should separate both good and bad from the literary works, but his attention should be on excellences rather than finding out faults. Fault finding is not the sole business of criticism and the critic. His focus should be on excellences. So, he is compared here, analogy of swan is used. Like a swan, he should separate the good from the bad one. He should distinguish between the good and bad. Then, next qualification of critic is imaginative sympathy. This is the sixth qualification which is essential to become an ideal critic. So, imaginative sympathy here stands for the ability to put oneself in the position or the place of the writer. It means critic should put himself in a position or the place of the writer to enjoy, to appreciate and to see the literary work. He should put himself at the place of writer. Then and then only he will be able to experience the literary work, the literary pleasure can be experienced by him, and these experiences, these aesthetic pleasures, these literary pleasures can be passed to the readers. He should see things from the point of view of the writer. Then the criticism or the critic should share the vision of life of the writer. What the writer has in his mind, what were the writer's thoughts, what were the ideology that writer wanted to pass through this literary piece. It should be shared by the criticism, it should be shared by the critic, and this can be shared when the critic himself undergoes the same feelings. When critic has same type of feeling, same type of experiences, then we will be able to feel that literary piece is for the reader. Then we will be able to come to the conclusion and we will be able to understand the value and significance of that literary piece. So, critic must possess the sound knowledge of human life, human psychology and human nature. It means he should be able to understand the nature of human beings, ability to understand the nature, ability to understand the psychology of human nature and ability to understand life of human beings is important to become a good critic. We know that literature mirrors life, literature reflects life, literature is associated with life, and criticism is related to literature. So literature mirrors life and criticism is related to literature. So criticism is directly associated with life. So in order to become a critic, it is essential that critics should have knowledge of human psychology, the knowledge of the world, and knowledge of human nature. The critic should be good observer of life. His observation of life should be minute. He should look at the life very closely, and this close observation, this subtle observation, this minute observation will make him a good critic. The next point that is important to become a good critic, we can call it a good interpreter. A good critic is a good interpreter. So interpretation and evaluation are interlinked. We have already talked about it in the functions of criticism. Evaluation, interpretation are two major functions of criticism. So interpretation depends upon knowledge, understanding, and vision of life of the critic. Once again I repeat, understanding, knowledge, and vision of life of the critic determines or define the literary work. He can call a literary work good or bad. He can point out merits and demerits on the basis of his understanding, his vision of life, and his knowledge. Sometimes writer is elusive. Sometimes literary purpose is recondite. Elusive means reference. Recondite means difficult to understand. We can call it obscure, and sometimes it can be abstruse. So ordinary readers will be not able to understand whatever the references have been mentioned in the literary piece. Sometimes the message or the meaning of literary piece is hidden and it is implied one. So ordinary reader can't understand the meaning or the message that the writer or the artist wanted to give through the literary piece. So critic here, as we know, the critic is the philosopher. Critic is the guide of ordinary reader. So critic facilitate, critic simplify, critic illustrate the message meaning which is hidden, and when then literary work is interpreted for the common readers by the critic. So critic should be a good interpreter, and this interpretation is essential to understand the literary work. So interpretation can be there when he has a broad vision, when he has a good understanding, and when he has a knowledge of human beings. Then the next point is a critic should be a listener of other people's voice. Listener of other people's voice. It means critic should not only shows his opinion or present his opinions to the others, he should also consider others' thinking, others' opinions, other thoughts, and others' feelings at the time of interpretation of literary work. Critic derives intense pleasure from literary work, and this intense pleasure can be communicated, can be transferred to the others by the way he communicates his message and way he listens to other people's voice. So critic is expected to respect other person's opinions and other person's feelings. So these things are essential to become a good critic. I repeat them. He should be man of wide reading. He should be good interpreter. He should be good analyzer. He should not discriminate between the present and the past at the time of reading. He should have Catholic taste. He should read literature with whatever is available in different languages. And most important thing is that he should be free from dogmatism. He should be free from pedantry, and he should be free from all sorts of things which detract him from the literary work. In the sense, his focus should be on excellences rather than imperfections. So fault finding is not the sole business of criticism. The business of critic and the criticism is to focus on excellences, and he can focus on excellences when his mind is free from prejudices and predilections. Thank you.